Vinaka, and thank you for joining us this evening on another episode of Life with Liliana and Friends. And I know that all of you have been enjoying the conversations. We've received so much feedback, and thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And I'm really, really glad that so many people have been able to take away some lessons from our own experience. So it's been a little bit of a journey for us as a family, exposing parts of our journey that I suppose make us seem quite vulnerable, but it makes it all worth it when we hear that so many people have found value in it, that they've been able to get the courage to make some changes in their own lives, and really this is what it's all about. So this evening I am so pleased to have this guest on the show again. She has been on the show already twice. She is the first human being, I suppose, that I've come to know. She brought me into this world. I've given her a lot of joy in her life, but I know I've also given her a lot of stress. I'm really thankful that my mom could be here, Miss Olivia Mavoa. Thank you, Mom, for coming again. And she'll tell anybody that I'm the favorite daughter, favorite child even, and I get to say that because no one is here to dispute. But you know, my mom has been such a great example to me throughout the years, and just like with any child, you have your moments with your parents, and maybe another episode we can talk about some of those moments, just rebellion, especially with me in particular and my mom. But she's not only been giving me so much advice over the years, both from a personal perspective and a professional perspective, which is what I wanted to highlight, because I'm really fortunate that my mom professionally has just really led by example. She was the former chief executive officer of the Fiji Hotel Association when I was growing up. So as a young girl, I had this to look up to. And I realize now when I'm older and had leadership positions of my own, that I had that to look up to, because not everybody has that. So in my head, it's kind of like, this is the path that I need to follow. So I'm thankful that she also does a lot of work in the community. She has so many people that she gets to mentor, both formally and informally. And, you know, we need good role models like this. So I don't ever take it for granted, Mom, that I have you there, even though I always question some of the advice and I think I'm too smart for that. But I just wanted to thank you up front for being a great role model. So you've been watching, or she watches all my episodes, guys, all the episodes. So you've watched the ones that we've done so far, Mom, and you know, you'd agree that we've exposed parts of our journey that is not common, but I just wanted to touch on first Melania and Gideon, your grandchildren, because we all know that you love your grandchildren more than your children. But how did you feel watching them and hearing their stories? What was that like for you?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. I was very emotional.
Yes.
You know, it's like I wish I could have taken, you know, have a magic wand kind of thing, and my darling grandchildren have to go through all of that.
Yes.
You know, and it's, well, to be quite honest, you know, it just broke my heart. I wanted to just hug them and that sort of thing,
Yes. And we think that I can understand, because as a parent, Mandanga, it's like, and I feel like I was the one responsible. It's very hard to listen to, but I'm glad that they felt comfortable enough to talk about it.
Very brave.
Very brave. Yes.
Very brave of them, because particularly you don't go through life at that young age to open up on your emotions and feelings like that. You probably do it 20 years, like, you know,
like
down the line.
now.
Then you realize all of this, and then you say, okay, somebody can question me. I'm in my 40s or something.
Yes.
But at that young age, all of these things, I guess we look at it, well, you're not supposed to be feeling this kind of emotions. Just let it all go all over your head. If you think you're emotionally stressed, and hey, get on with it. You know, you got a roof over your head, you got 3 meals a day. What you worried about? Kind of thing. You know, you don't look at children as that kind of emotions, but you don't realize that will actually affect them for the rest of their life.
Yes, that's
based on that.
Yes. Yes, that's so true, Mom. Thank you for that. So, I've asked my mom to come on this evening just to look at some of the things that we've spoken about from the perspective of someone older. So she's just shared how she felt seeing her grandchildren be in that place. If we just think specifically to what they actually spoke about, can you think of one thing that Melania said or you learned from there that struck you?
I think one of the most important things that I learned from both of them is actually the importance of communicating
Right.
with your children, no matter how old they are,
Yes.
of what is going on within the family.
Okay.
Because we always like to paint a picture that everything is, hunky-dory.
Right.
Those sort of things. And you don't think that the children, when they see something, the arguments or the people, talking about something else and that, you don't think that they take it in. So that you don't communicate with them. What Melania said, she didn't even realize, when you talked about the
being separated
and all of that, because you don't communicate, because you just want your children to not to, what's the word for it, to think that everything is, happy, and then you are going through, as a parent, you're going through your own emotional stress, so it's hard for you to probably reach out and share that to your children, because they'll be looking up to you. How do I get over this stress? Because parents themselves are going through that emotional stress, so it's hard to relate to that. And I think one of the important things is actually these issues are not addressed at a level where somebody will share to you, listen, my dear, if you're going through this is what you should be doing. You should be talking to your children about it. You should share this with those around you, because they will be affected by it. But you don't get that kind of assistance.
Yes.
You're supposed to just grin and bear it.
Yes.
And grin and bear it, but at your level.
Yes.
Not to the children.
Yes.
You're supposed to just, yes, Mom, I'm going to bed, that's it. But you don't realize they're here, and and then they're trying to.
Yes. So when you're talking about communication, Edwin and I often make sure, or we talk about making sure we have a space, like the environment needs to be conducive for that two-way communication, because communication is not just one way, like that example Melania gave, but also giving them an opportunity to talk, but they have to be comfortable enough to talk, and not just say, well, what do you think? Nothing, and then go to sleep. When we talk about so we've been talking a lot about co-parenting, and we looked at, Edwin's view being, raising children that are not his biological children. Then we spoke to the children and see how they, what they thought. So now we have your perspective, and yours is going to be quite interesting because you're looking at it through the eyes of a grandmother, but also in our own family. Because you and Dad were divorced, while you both never remarried, you still had to parent separately. So, it's a form of co-parenting, I guess. But then when you were growing up, also your mom and dad were living separately. And so there was also that happening. So maybe you could share with us what it was like for you growing up with parents that were not living together.
I guess for us growing up and having this situation, it was like you see around you as well, it's like normal kind of thing.
Yes.
Because there was always, I remember, grandmother now, let's say, the biggest thing that I guess learned from that is that respect.
Okay.
Whatever the thing is in there, you make sure, respect, you don't answer anybody back, or even talk about, why is this, why is that, because that's a sign
why is Tua there and why can't I go and
that's a sign of disrespect, so you just have to zip it and live with it. And because there were also other families, in those days it was like a normal. You'd have families that have half brothers and sisters, and that you knew them, and it was like, and that was it. That's the father's living there with somebody else, or mothers. It wasn't something that was out of the ordinary.
That's an interesting point, Mom, because now we're saying that we shouldn't have that kind of arrangement. But you're right, when you look back, because that's almost like when you look at the chiefs, like in the older days, there's numerous wives that they have from different children. So I suppose in Tua's time, it was still just that sort of mentality. It's not, it's almost expected that, at that age, they would have different. And it's almost, I remember also Lai's mom or the grandmother's, their grandmother's father, Ratu Julian, you know, they've got the same. He had, and with Nay, she looked at them as like they're just all siblings, you know, and they know when they're going to a house, so you have your stepbrothers and sisters, Yes, it's interesting how that's kind of evolved, and now we are saying we shouldn't normalize it. Yes. So you saw examples of that around you, and so that was normal. And so don't question it.
Don't question.
Do as you're told. Did you find that you had any problems with your stepmoms at all?
No problem at all. Because like your grandfather was like the boss.
Okay.
You know, and whatever he says goes, and he was not the kind of person that was, I would say, would communicate all these things. How are you feeling, my daughter, and all that. You know, we just got a house to live in. We were looked after very well. We were lived very comfortably, and
interesting. Yes.
You know, there was nothing to question because you know, you lived in a comfortable place.
Yes.
And everything was there for you.
Right, so you have no reason to say anything about it. None of anything happening here is any of your business.
Yeah,
you're being fed and you get what you want, and so
you're
just
living in a nice house and nice
interesting
surroundings, and you know, living at those times what would be like a luxury lifestyle. So what is there to complain about? Yeah,
so it's interesting that you picked up from the children that the biggest thing was communication, because back in your time when you were growing up, that was not a thing. There's no space for you to, and you are quite vocal, right? Like, and with all your siblings, you would probably, if you were given the opportunity, you would have questioned.
Because if, you know, but like, you know, you have to follow, what's the word for it, you know, follow your place, have your place in society,
and you just follow there and do as you're told.
All the siblings, if they're not questioning or what. And,
so you just take your cue from there.
Yes, so you prefer to shut up and lump it, and that was it. What's your problem? You've got a roof over your head, you've got something to eat.
Yes.
You know, and you've got a good lifestyle. What's the problem?
Yes, interesting.
And when you see all around you people that are struggling and living, you know, that's a, you know, comparison.
Yes. So when we just fast forward to when you were co-parenting with Dad, what are some, maybe a couple of things of what do you think you did well in that time? Because you would, again, we talked about this earlier, just trying to navigate as you think you know. There's no real reference. There's, you know, we talked about counseling, but at that time it's like you want counseling, you go to St. Giles, and that's like that whole stigma related to that. So when you were navigating with the limited, I guess, resources you had, we didn't have internet at that time, what was one thing you think you did well in terms of co-parenting?
Well, just to go back, take a step back, because one of the things with me and your father separating and that, as you know, ours was, what do you call it, a fixed marriage.
Right, arranged.
Arranged
yes.
Marriage. So in that respect, I was not expected to do something like, you can't do this because what will people say? You know, that was more important to I guess, with my mother at that time.
Yes.
My father had passed away. My father would probably be a little bit different in that respect.
Yes.
But with my mother, it was like, that was more important to put on a good show. You can't do this.
Right.
You know, never mind your suffering and that. But then she saw what I was going through one day and she said, okay.
One day, then she said it was okay.
She said I could.
Yes.
I couldn't do it without her consensus.
Right.
Approval.
Approval.
Even though the whole family was like, that's such a, you can't do that. Never mind what you're going through personally.
Yeah.
That doesn't come into it, but the thing is, you can't do this because what will people think?
Yes,
That was more important, not what you're going through.
Yes.
Emotionally or physically or whatever. And that's what society was
Isn't it
like.
sad, Mom? That especially to the women, we're told to Vosota.
You have to just put on a show.
Yes.
And then I couldn't do anything until now said I could.
Yes, and it was affecting you, your health, you mentioned.
Mentally, and I was like...
physical health, getting
and
sick.
all of that, and I was like a regular at the hospital all the time, and they knew it. Because they just come, give you a bed in there, and I knew But if I couldn't get out of the situation, I didn't want my children to be without their mother because I knew what her father couldn't probably.
Yes.
So that was one of the main reasons where I had to prioritize my
Right.
health for my children's sake.
Yes, it's interesting. And it's interesting hearing your story. And you and I have spoken about this, a bit. But it's like we see something as children. We didn't see all of that. Like we don't know all of that. Because still we grew up in a home that was still the communication is kind of, you're still a child. You don't get involved in these conversations. But we couldn't see that. And so when you leave, it's like, man, where is she gone? Not realizing that from your stance, from your perspective, you're doing it for us, for your health.
Yeah.
Like you had to be there for us, and if you stayed any longer, you might have not been around for as long.
I knew that was
Wow.
like, so never mind what people say. That's why I let Dad stay in the family home.
Yes.
Because of the respect for the family and that, because I knew what it was. He didn't want him because I could manage.
Yes.
Side of the home. But
Yes.
I knew he couldn't, he's used to that space and
Yes.
but now I'm looking after.
Yes. And so all of us kids too, you didn't have to move us or anything. So when I think back, it's probably the least disruptive way.
That's right.
So I guess that could be one thing you think you did well. You got out, while you could, while you were still, and got out to kind of restore yourself. What is something you think you could have done differently?
I think it's communication again.
Right.
That I could have set you children down to talk about it and that, but I had to look at a time where you were already out there doing your own thing.
Yes.
And, so it was only one more to go.
Only Jeremy was at home.
To go, and then so okay, he's in high school now, so probably all right, but not discussing is something that I wish, in hindsight, that we could have done was, all I remember telling you kids is make sure you respect your father.
Yes.
I remember saying that to you guys, and whatever you do, this has got nothing to do with you. This is between me and your father. It's our, you have the respect. And I remember you children coming back to me later on in life when I wanted to say something to you guys. I said, no, but Dad doesn't say it. I said, no, but...
So it backfired, eh?
It backfired a bit.
No, we over-respected, and it's like, no, Dad said this. We stick with Dad. Okay.
But the sort of that's something that because going back biblically, where you've got to honor your father and your mother.
Yes.
Even though I knew that you guys were taking sides, I didn't want you to go through that. Dishonor your father.
Yes, and I learned when I did some counseling of my own. The counselor said that when you separate and the kids are younger, it's much easier because they show their emotion, they're likely to lash out. So they recover better, provided you manage that well. But when they're older, it becomes quite difficult. And we were all older. So I think we all were processing it in different ways. And because we didn't know details, we were kind of assuming maybe this happened, no, this didn't happen. And then Dad would give us his version, and then you were not there. So it can be really confusing, but I like that, like just the communication. And I hope, parents who are listening who might be in similar situations, communication is key. And it doesn't mean that, if your children get angry or whatever, that's okay. You can't control their reaction, but it's our responsibility. I think the right thing to do is to communicate what's happening.
I'd like to add on to that because unfortunately most of, I'm just talking about equal care families, you don't go up to your child and say, listen, Lubengo, how are you feeling? How do you feel about this? We don't talk about things like that.
Yes.
And that communication is important for you to have that time to really talk into how do you feel about this.
Yes.
At that time I wouldn't come to you and say, Lisa, what do you think? What do you think? Because I said, hey, come on, little child, just do as you're told. I'm making the decision.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't come in we don't think about what you're feeling.
Yes. Yes, when we should, when the parent should.
Yes. I'm going to leave your father now. How do you think, what you think
Yes.
about it? How do you feel?
Yes.
Because we don't want to go, you just don't want to go there.
No. Because you're trying to deal with your own thing, Mandanga, like you said earlier. And to go and have to deal now with your child's emotions, that's just too much. They just can just leave them out of the...
Because whatever I decide, that's it. That's good enough for everyone.
Yes,
You know?
yes. And a lot of people have said to me when listening to Gideon and Nia that, oh man, they're so open and, we love that you can ask them anything. But one thing I always say to them is that it's not like they were always like this. It's like, for that example, to get to that point, you'd have to nurture that relationship from when they're young,
Exactly.
to always ask them whether there's something bad happening or not. How are you going? How was school? What do you think about this? And so when significant events like that happen, then it's a natural, and they'll be comfortable opening up. I wanted to talk a little bit about Edwin, because he mentioned, I know we were laughing about this when he had it, and he was wondering, how do I talk about my relationship with now? So I hope everybody has seen that episode where Edwin spoke to Margaret. And he had said when he came into the family, because obviously two different cultures. I talked about my marriage with Lai before, and it was with the same culture, but again different, because Lai and them were very traditional. But now Edwin and I are different ethnicities, and of course the difference in culture is significant. But from a mother's perspective, not just a mother, but a Lawan mother, they, I think, are in a class of their own. He mentioned that she was the most challenging in terms of coming into the family. So tell us, what did you think? What was it like when you knew, when we had that conversation? Like, oh, Mom.
Am I smiling now?
Your eyes are smiling.
Very difficult,
Yes.
because he didn't tick the boxes.
Right.
And I only have one daughter.
Yes.
My princess was going to marry what?
Yes.
So that was, first of all, I said, goodness gracious,
Yes.
And to come like that. And, little things. I remember I gave you one car because I said, you're not going to be riding around in that horrible looking car.
Yes,
that
yes.
sounds really, what's
Yes.
the word for it? But, things like that to me mattered. You're not even riding in the right car.
Right,
You can
yes.
take that car away and use this car here. I don't
Yes.
want you people, it sounds silly now when you think about it, but
Yes, but those are real things. Those are real things that you were
have to tick all
feeling.
the right
Yes.
boxes,
What it looks like, what does your appearance look like, and then what does he look like? And then even on appearance, he just looks so different.
Well,
He's, like
and I have
not
to think about what everybody else will think about it too.
Right.
Which is really, when you think about it, you really shouldn't be going there.
it really sounds ridiculous when you say it, eh?
Yeah,
But
it
that's
does,
the
but
reality,
that's the
Mom.
reality,
Yeah.
I come from a big family and that,
Yes.
and then I know that it's, wow, did you know that Liliana is,
Yes.
But at least the first thing I could do is ride around in a better looking car
Yes.
than that bomb.
Yes. So that was Edwin's favorite car. And, for those who have heard Edwin's story, it was like a huge thing that he finally had his own car. And unfortunately, he had just to come to a family with a mother-in-law like Madam. It's like, nah, not gonna cut
On that car.
So how did you respond to him? Like, can you remember how you behaved towards him? Because Dad and him got along straight away.
I think, and my grandchildren will probably attest to that. It was like hard. But when I saw my grandchildren, I knew that I couldn't just continue with that kind of attitude towards him because they are hurting. And I knew that when I was there and I was around and I always see my Melania and particularly Melania making sure everything was okay.
Yes.
And, she was trying to balance it that
Oh,
it
yes.
didn't give me the opportunity to get annoyed or I saw how it was really affecting her, trying to make sure everything was okay because of that also what she knew my feelings.
Yes.
And she's trying to smooth things over and that broke my heart.
Yes. They shouldn't have to do that,
They
eh?
shouldn't have to do that,
Yes.
just because I was feeling like a drama queen all the time on where this was concerned.
Like, now it's coming, and then all of a sudden they feel stressed as opposed to, getting excited that now it's coming.
Yeah,
so that's good.
I think it was seeing how they were affected by it that
Yes.
really made me, come on, get over it.
Yes, and Gideon mentioned last week how what helped him was the way Edwin and Lai got along, and then it made me realize to that same point that we as parents, we have a big role to play when it comes in, these relationships. We can't just say, oh, I didn't like him, and so, they just need to get in line. No, because the children are watching and they're affected.
Yeah.
They're too young to be bothered with us adults that can't get along.
And most of the times, we disregard that.
Yes.
We just ignore that. It's just between you and me and him, and never mind what the kids are thinking.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's something that we should always also remember, that their feelings.
Yes, and I think, Mom, that leads on to other things. They start suppressing, they get angry, and then now all the social issues we're seeing, these things don't just come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
They're things, and it might seem like little things to us, but as children, and it's our responsibility to protect them as well,
Yeah.
Which means we have to just do things we don't always agree with. So you had to unlearn, that behavior that you were brought up with. Like you said, you were brought up in a certain way, no communication, and certainly not marrying out of, like, you would have rather had an arranged marriage, whether you like someone or not, rather than go outside and choose your own.
Because what's important is, I'm sorry I have to say this, but in those days, it's important to have the right connections, the right family, all of that. You have to tick all the boxes for that, That's when your dad came along. He had to tick all the boxes.
Right. But then look at how that ended. It's kind of, then you try and try and try. It's really sad. It's really sad. Man, just thinking through that, like, we learned so many lessons.
But that's just one generation to the next.
Yes, so many lessons. But we have to be open to learn. Like, we have to have that open mindset, because otherwise, and that behavior just goes through the generations. So, Mom, just to end, I've been thinking a lot about things in, we talk about these issues. So what can we do about it? Like, this is one way, sharing our story, and so other people can help. But I'm thinking in terms of community support, maybe even at national level, for this type of situation where we have blended families, co-parenting, because they will happen. There's no way we're going to be free of this in our society. Interracial marriages, what do you think we could do as a society to help support people going through this?
I think one of the things that have come to mind to me is actually the churches can play a big part.
Right.
Because a lot of our families, we go to church presenting a picture that everything is okay.
Yes.
But, if the churches could probably take a step to bring in, because as I said, the stigma of that, you need therapy, you need to go to St. Giles and all of that. People won't do that, but yet you present a picture to the church that everything is okay. You're there to Sunday school, you're there taking children to Sunday school, you go to church twice a day, you're ticking all the boxes there, but emotionally what's going through the families and all that is not being addressed.
Yes.
So, it's probably something, that I remember in our church group, the ladies, they brought in somebody in our ladies' fellowship, brought in somebody to talk about lupus, for example.
Yes.
And that was like a real eye-opener, and that's what we were talking about, physical disease. But what about emotional?
Right.
You can get some speakers into the church, at least you can, so people will, know. The thing is, unfortunately, we have this thing that's, you have families and people getting married, and that's happily ever after.
Right, right.
What happens in between after 10 years, 20 years, whatever, people don't talk about. You're supposed to grin and bear it.
Yeah.
You only come to confess your sins or whatever, but you don't realize when there's actually the emotional upheaval or whatever is going in within the families.
Yes.
You need to have sessions where you get in the speakers to come and talk about this, and that you can open up to somebody on what you might be going through.
Yes.
And I think that, like to me, why I'm saying the church, because that's where the majority of the population
Yes,
goes.
and there's one in every community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not as if we're coming in because we realize that within this church there's a lot of single parents, there's a lot of things like that. You just come with an open mind and you say, okay, come, we're talking about emotional health here.
Yes.
And as I said, when you have that emotional problem, you grow up and you go into work somewhere because you've got a degree in something and high IQ, but now you're recognizing it's the EQ, the emotional side.
That's right, that's very important.
Because how you perform is not just with your degree at that, but if you've got an emotional issue, it affects your performance.
Absolutely.
So that's just as important. It's being recognized.
Yes.
So that comes back to your upbringing and all of that you've gone through.
Yes.
And your experience as a child, as a young adult, all of that.
Yes.
So, I'll probably just say that because you hear all the talk on the TV with these organizations that talk about psychology, come and see us, but it's just something on TV, and that 90% of the people won't go there.
I won't walk in there. Yes.
They'll probably, but if you invite some of them just to come and talk, not just once, but a few times, come and share what it's all about. And even you probably could have somebody in the congregation who will stand up and share their story.
Yes.
So it makes you relate to it.
Yeah, that's so good. That should be the role of the church. Yeah, in the Bible, Jesus says, we're not here for the sick. We are here for the sick,
yes,
not for the well. And sadly, our churches are quite religious, especially the more traditional setups like the Methodist Church and the Catholic Church.
Yeah, for the sick he's talking about, it's just not a physical illness,
That's
but
right.
emotional.
That's right, absolutely. And we're really thankful that we are part of a church that, has walked alongside us through the different seasons. You also have mentors for yourself, for your children. And that's really what the role of the church should be.
Exactly.
So thank you, Mom. Thank you for everything you shared. And thank you for making time for me, as you always do. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And to all our viewers, I hope you enjoyed the conversation this evening. There was a number of great things that Mom raised, and particularly the communication and how important it is for us parents to be communicating with our children. Also the role of the church, which is really, really important. And it's such a great way it's a great avenue, a channel, I suppose, for us to get all of these topics out and to provide support for our community. And she also mentioned the impact of the society and how that really defines what we do, which is sad. So thank you again, Mom. I keep on saying thank you. I learned so much. It's still spinning in my head. But thank you, viewers, for joining us. And I hope that this is useful to somebody. Next week, we have Mr. Warid back on the show to sit and have a chat with me. But we thank you for always coming on and sharing the page. Don't forget, we will be back here on Saturday, 8 p.m. with Edwin, like I said. But please like the page, please share it, please follow it. Don't forget, there's the Liliana Pareti Warid page where you see behind the scenes. So please join that and follow us on this journey, and let's learn from each other. Vinakubaka and happy Mother's Day again.
Life with Liliana and Friends.